Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. And hey, welcome back to a second day of a 12 days of a scandalous Christmas story. Oh my goodness, I am so in love with doing this series. It is so fun to go back through the nostalgic elements that is everything that we have been kind of reviewing since starting yesterday, right? And it's just been so fun to go through the stories of the past and just reflecting, although they've been a little bit scandalous, but still, it's still a good time anyways. So as I am kind of getting some things connected here, I hope that you are doing well. I hope that this holiday season is finding you doing well. I would love to know what you're doing for the season. I'm kind of just chilling out for the most part and working, but I'm trying to kind of enjoy every bit of the season that I possibly can when I'm actually, having a moment to stand still. But I do have my cup and mug. This is what I'm featuring today. The snowflake is what we're going to. So yeah, I love my snowflake. I've had this cup for a very, very long time. And you see my hot chocolate mug, and now you can get these mugs are like the size of your head. But it's kind of nice, and this is nostalgic to me as well. So yeah, I hope that you are enjoying your time, with this series as well. And I hope that you're kind of just relaxing with your hot cup of whatever, cold cup of whatever. But if you don't have it yet, go ahead and hit that pause button, go ahead and grab that and then come on back. Because, we want to sit down and nestle into these scandalous stories. But yeah, it's been quite fun going through all of them. And yeah, I do hope that you're enjoying it. So we are going to be getting into this next story for the scandalousness that it is. But I think that it's more or less considered scandalous because of the nature of what took place. Yes, but it was more unfortunate than I think scandal. But hey, we're still going to throw it in there anyways. And it most certainly is something that started within the Thanksgiving holidays and definitely reverberated through the Christmas season as well. So we are going to go ahead and get right on into that. So what I need you to do for me right now is we're going to set the tone. So what I need you to do is kind of think back to 2005. What were you doing? Where were you at? All of those good things. Was it a good year for you? It actually was a pretty good year for me. There were some nice pivotal things that took place that year. And so I do have fond memories of it. But it wasn't so great for everybody in that year. So we're going to go ahead and start off with our first sharing. But before we do that, we definitely want to know what was going on in 2005. So at this point, we were looking at the number one song being We Belong Together by Mariah Carey. It actually spent 14 weeks at the top of the Billboard Hot 100, making it the longest running number one song of that year. And I used to love that song. I mean, I used to sing it all the time. And then next, the number one movie was actually Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, if you're a Trekkie, let me know down below in the comment section. Me, myself, I don't really get into Star Wars so much, but I have watched, a couple of the movies, I guess, but not as often as many other people I know did. And then thirdly, we had one of the most talked about celebrities of that year being Gwen Stefani. So that's where we're at in 2005. And as you can see for the pic up front, we're looking at one major pop star split of 2005, and that is Jessica Simpson and Nick Lachey. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, of course, our sharing is coming from eOnline, and it shares that there had been a few signs, some captured on camera for MTV's Newlyweds, that Simpson might not want to love Nick Lachey forever after all. Now, the split rumors were verified when they announced their separation on November 23rd, 2005. And if I'm not mistaken, yes, as the sharing says, it was the day before Thanksgiving. And I remember at the time when it happened, and it was on, I think we heard it on the radio actually. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I remember feeling so bad for them in the sense of like to actually have a split up of a coupling of a marriage over the holidays and right before Thanksgiving. I mean, my goodness, how horrible is that? And of course, we always know that these splits don't always, happen right in that moment. It was probably some time coming. And it just happened to all things culminate at that right before Thanksgiving time. So very unfortunate indeed. So let's go ahead and continue. We all had a great Thanksgiving, All the family was together and we had a wonderful time. Sister Ashley Simpson had told Star after the holiday, which the Simpsons, sans any Lachey's, spent in Texas. Jess was doing great, she added, and they didn't talk about the breakup. There would be time for that later, apparently. Now, the next month was rough for Jessica, who reminisced to MTV News the following year about listening to Patty Griffin's Let 'Em Fly and bawling. She and Ashley laid there listening to the song and just cried and cried like babies, she recalled. In a lot of ways, my sister really gave me the strength to pull through this really hard time. And it was just lying there and being with her that got me through it. I know everything would be okay. And the song is about how sometimes you just have to know when to let something go. And that was that moment. And I had to sing it. She had later filed for divorce on December 16th, a Friday, as if the 24/7 news cycle wasn't going to notice. And after, at that point, 3 years of marriage. Now, I don't know if many of you did watch, but I did, and found it to be quite a fun, reality show to watch at the time. And that was the Newlywed Show between the two of them. Now, from what I recall back during that show, they actually had shared how they had rekindled, because you know that Nick Lachey used to be part of the 98 Degrees pop star boy band group back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And Jessica Simpson, of course, was a pop star herself that we've really very much familiar with. And she always kind of ranked in, I believe at the time, like number 3. So you had Britney Spears is number 1, Christina Aguilera is number 2, Jessica Simpson was number 3, and Mandy Moore is number 4. That was always what it seemed to be like during that early 2000 time frame, because all the ladies kind of popped out around the same time, right? One after another, pretty in succession, close actually. And so with that, there was a lot of hype and celebrity around this couple in the early 2000s. And late 90s probably too, but into the early 2000s for sure. Now, Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson, if you recall, were definitely kind of the, pop princess and pop, I don't know, prince, I guess, of that time. Everybody was so into that relationship. I want to say that also with Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake at the time were together too. So there was a whole lot of that, new age type stuff going on. But at the time, they seemed to be so in love, but there was an age gap, I think of 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so, Jessica was in her very early 20s and Nick Lachey was like 26 to 8, something like that. So he's kind of in that mode of wanting to settle down and get married and have kids and do all of these things. I don't necessarily want to say that his career at 98 Degrees was necessarily sunsetting, but it did seem like it was coming to a little bit of a stall, maybe then going into the succession of setting, right? And maybe him having to look at different opportunities, whereas Jessica was still kind of, doing her thing and still making new music and all of that good stuff. So I recall when she had shared that, they were together, it was like everybody was all in love with that. And then they had broken up, probably for those reasons that I shared. And then we have the really awful situation of September 11th. And what she had shared is that basically they were split up at that time. And when September 11th had happened, and of course, as we all know, shook everybody to the core, and everybody was looking for their family members and friends and making sure everybody was okay. And I believe she was saying either one of them, I think she for sure was flying at the time. And so he, of course, was naturally very concerned. And so I think he had called her possibly, and they started talking, and that's how they rekindled, because, of course, when something happens that was so devastating, such as September 11th, you look at, what's important, right? And of course, there was probably still really a lot of love there, and all of that. And they obviously made the decision to decide to kind of separate because it was the best thing to do at the time. But then, of course, when you're faced with something like that, you start to really think about, do I really not want to be with this person for the rest of my life? What does that look like? And obviously it started the ability for them to kind of kickstart their situation. And I don't know if they met up in the airport or something like that, or how that happened, but I know that the communication started there, and then they kind of fastly got back together, and the next thing you know, they were getting married. And so we got the featuring of that prior to the Newlywed Show, and the Newlywed Show came first. And then, of course, we had the fun, with like the chicken of the sea comments and all that kind of stuff. And if you're around, you know. And, then unfortunately, towards the, I guess, third year or so, you kind of start seeing some of the cracks in the Newlywed Show. If you go back into looking at it, it was definitely a really good show to binge, like in the middle of the night. I used to binge it sometimes in the middle of the night after I got off work. And so when that happened, you can kind of tell there was some things going on, but, they really were the Tinseltown couple. They were everywhere. They were doing interviews everywhere and all that kind of stuff. So it was a lot going on. And of course, she had the Daisy Duke, or not, what is it? The Dukes of Hazzard movie that she did, was like the remake of it or whatnot. And so that's when you start to see things starting to crumble on the home front. But her star was rising, right? Because she was doing less of this. I guess she was still singing, but less of that, and going into the acting is what it looked like was happening for her. And then, boom, the message gets loud and clear to everybody that they had broken up. And then again, like they said, with the news cycle, of course, it was a 24/7 thing. And so it did get out, doing things, hopefully off the grid is not it's not a thing, and it's definitely not a thing now. So yeah, so unfortunate for them. It broke so many people's hearts. There was a lot of fans of their union, and of course they were really upset about that. But it seems like they have bounced back. Nick is now married to Vanessa. I can't think of her last name. They've been together for about maybe almost as long as Jessica and Lachey were split. I don't know if it's like a couple year break or a year and a half break or something like that. Because if you remember, I think Vanessa worked for either VH1 or MTV. And I think she was a host or did interviews or something like that. They got together, and I kind of remember her talking about them meeting on one of the documentary style presentations he was working on. They got to talking and all this kind of stuff. And you got to remember, these two here, Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson, were pretty big stars at the time. And I'm pretty sure she was a little nervous, about stepping into that territory, because a lot of people who were fans of this couple were, still reeling of their split. And I think she wanted to be real careful. Look at how social media can be now when you're, entering in a relationship that you have no business being a part of. Imagine, what she must have felt then as well, when you didn't really have social media to that extent. But still, the backlash, you had the tabloids, you had the national pride, you had all those types of things, and she didn't want any of that. And you maybe had, hate letters as well, So what ends up happening is she ends up deciding, that, I want to be cool and calm and collective about it. But they end up, talking, chatting, becoming friends. And next thing you know, he pops up with her. And then, Jessica then gets up with, I think, some football player, Tony Romo. And then, that didn't work out. There was another gentleman as well that she might have been hanging out with, and that didn't work out. And then somewhere along the line, she ended up finding out the husband that she is with right now. Now, unfortunately, I did hear that there might have possibly been trouble in paradise, but it's kind of hushed and quieted down again. But how interesting, here we are again in the Thanksgiving, Christmas time frame, and this is now happening, possibly, potentially, I'll say allegedly, because it is really rumor based, and no one's come out and said anything to the extent of that anything's happening there. I hope that it's not, quite frankly. She has 3 children now, and I'm hoping that they will find, if they are having troubles, that they'll find a way to, be able to reconcile those issues and to be able to stay together and keep their family intact. We also know that Jessica is not hurting at all professionally, even though it looks like she stepped back quite a bit from singing, and I don't think she does any acting at all. I think she did do some causes and stuff like that, was part of programs such as that. Philanthropy, was her thing. And then she, basically created her Jessica Simpson brand, which, probably has a lot of different things now, but I know definitely started with apparel, like purses and shoes. That was her thing. And she really turned that into, I don't know, is it like $1 billion business now? So nevertheless, she's doing great for that. And Nick Lachey and Vanessa, they've been married for so long. I think they got 3 or 4 kids themselves, and they do hosting on, I think, Love Island or something like that. And Vanessa actually just got off of doing Hawaii Five-0. I think it was Hawaii Five-0 or one of those shows in Hawaii. But I believe it's now canceled. So, they're still doing that, as hosting it together. So everybody seems to be happy. As a matter of fact, the talk is actually getting ready to sunset itself as well. But this week they did have them on as, guests. And so they seem to be doing just as happy. So everybody at the moment seems to be doing really well and has been able to move forward and move on from this scandalous story. And thank goodness for that for them, right? Now, of course, the next area we're going to dive into is definitely checking to see what can be considered a happy and notable Christmas movie or presentation or whatever that is nostalgic, of course, and definitely something that's a traditional based. Well, they are going for our childhood now. Okay, for some of us, anyways. Now, you remember the Rudolph movie, right? The one that's televised. I don't know if it came out in the 60s, the 50s. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't born at the time that it came out, but later on, as when I was a kid or whatever, they would play that every night, and they still do. I don't know if they do it this year though. I saw the snowman one, the Frosty Snowman, and something else. I don't know if they do. I think they might have stopped doing it. I don't remember. But the the movie that had the first, I guess, element of movement, if not with the little characters. So let me go ahead and pop that up real quick so you can see as reference. Right here, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? Oh my gosh, such a cute little movie. I think it's like 30 minutes long, maybe even an hour, and it will play every year. For some reason, it's not played this year yet. I don't know if it's discontinued for doing that or not. I'm not sure. But it was a CBS thing at the time. I think it might have still been CBS Presents, all the way through. But yeah, apparently not everybody was in love with old Rudolph the reindeer, red-nosed reindeer. So, oh my gosh, I was like, they are coming for our childhood for real. They are coming for our childhood. So let's go ahead and get into what was said that would be scandalous, because it goes against what probably most people thought at the time, or at least when they said it. So this is going from BuzzFeed. And remember, these are stories that actually came from a December 2020 article. And, we know what was going on in 2020. And I'm sure people were not in the mood for anything at this point. And that's totally understandable. So apparently, people said, look, stop motion specials. Movies are creepy AF. Stop motion special. Movies are creepy AF. What? They say the movements, especially in older specials like Rudolph, are freaky because they're choppy, since they have to do every motion separately. Also, the voiceovers don't always match the motion being made. Now that may be true. I mean, they may be having something, might be onto something with that. I think that there is a possibility that that's possibly true as far as the voiceovers. And sometimes that bothers me too, when a voiceover doesn't match what's actually being said. But it happens. Sometimes you can have a glitch in the system, and it's what it is. Hey, because sometimes happens now we're doing videos, so it can happen. But yeah, I just thought, wow, they came so hard for this one. And then of course the motion. Now again, I don't remember what year, and I did try to find it, and I couldn't find it in time for sharing today. But I think this kind of came out in the 60s, maybe early or something like that. So I mean, for its time, it probably was pretty, forward moving, right? But of course, yes, now by today's standards and in 2020, it wasn't the greatest thing. Now, creepy, I guess, the concept where we kind of, do the stiff movements like this and, that kind of thing. I mean, look, I mean, it's just, it's such an innocent movie. But yeah, I just thought it was so funny when I saw Rudolph, because I was like, oh my gosh, if I could have a moment of, thinking about clutching my pearls, I'm like, what? Not Rudolph. Why are we coming from Rudolph? But yeah, I mean, obviously I can understand that, maybe for some people, when you look at maybe if you saw people moving in that way in movies now, it would be, because it is utilized that way. And I'm looking around now because I'm like, But yeah, but I just thought it was so funny. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, they're not coming for our childhood movies. But yeah, I would love to know your thoughts though. Have you watched? Do you still watch? Is this a traditional thing for you to watch the CBS Rudolph stories? Again, I don't think it came out this year, and I don't know if it will. I'm not sure. But if you have watched it over the years, I'd love to know. Drop down below in the comment section. And also, too, if you remember the 2005 split of the pop star duo Jessica Simpson and Nick Lachey, drop it down, below, kind of, what was going on for you. And now, you may not have cared about the situation, so no one's expecting that, right? But if you had thoughts about it and you want to share about it, look, it's just for fun. We're just hanging out. Go ahead and drop it down in the comment section, because it was definitely a split hurt all around. I like to say the world, but and it wasn't the internet at the time, but well, I mean, obviously we had internet at the time, but it wasn't like how it would be probably now if they had the same weight of stardom as they had back then at this time, right? It would have been like groundbreaking. I don't know, name a couple that's huge right now that's split up, and it'd be that kind of fever, right? So, but yeah, so I just thought it was just an interesting day too, as far as representing scandalous stories. And definitely, if you have not gotten a chance to see day one, go ahead and make sure you finish this one out, of course, and then go back and watch day one. I also do have a playlist too. So if you have to do, find yourself doing a binging and you wish to do so, you can do that as well. It's just another way of easily being able to see them all in one section. And, or just, watch whatever's going on here. I also will be doing, regular, I want to say like now time. What is that word I'm looking for? I don't know, present day stories. But this here is all reserved for nostalgia. Yeah, nostalgia. Because like I said, there's so much scandalous crap going on right now that it's all over the place. And I just wanted to go back to a place in time where maybe things didn't seem so scandalous. These are kind of like child's play, some of these stories. Not all of them, now mind you. There's going to be some that are not so much. But yeah, a few of these are pretty light, but of course, it's still happening to people. So, these were things that affected their lives. So, of course, at the time, it was not a great thing. But it does seem like these two definitely had moved on, me, Nick, and Jessica. And so everybody seems to be fine. So, it is what it is. But yeah, so I think that'll about do it for this second day of 12 days of a scandalous Christmas story. I am so glad that you were able to be here with me today. And you know what? I got my little tree up here. I do need to get some more ornaments for it, but I think I'm going to chill with it for right now because I like the kind of fierceness of it all. Now, there are actually twinkle lights on here too, but unfortunately, they seem to twinkle really bright in the first few minutes, and then they started kind of going back and rescinding because I'm like, I can't even see my lights. But hey, maybe next year we'll do something a little bit different. We'll have brighter lights or something. I don't know. Who knows? I'm just hoping we'll all be here next year. Anyways, I digress. But I just want to thank you so much for being here for this time and hanging out with me and going down the memory lanes of nostalgia of the year 2005. I'd love to know if 2005 was a good year for you. And if it was, are you going to drop down anything that you thought was interesting in that year? Go ahead and drop it down in the comment section below. And yeah, I think with that, I'm going to bid you adieu for this video. If you are new here, you haven't had a chance to subscribe, I do hope that you will and be part of the family. I would so love to have you. Definitely make sure you have your notification bells on as well, as I will be dropping more videos, and we'll continue with this series for the next however many days until we get to 12 days of Christmas, which actually is going to run into the 24th, which is Christmas Eve. So I'm really hoping that you're enjoying it, and just kind of a relaxed, kind of fun thing to do. There's so much hustle and bustle during this time of the year for the most part for a lot of us, and so sometimes it's nice to kind of just let your hair down and maybe take a little bit of break of what's going on currently and looking back of the yesteryears. Sometimes it's okay to do just that. But I also, if you're doing any big plans or any fun things, for Christmas, you want to share it down below, definitely share it down below. I think for me, like I said, I'm just gonna keep it on the low key. I think this year I'm definitely doing a lot of working, and I'm enjoying that and finding joy and solace in that. But I do hope to have some fun moments to do with the family as well. So definitely, if you are doing that or traveling or anything like that, just share it down below. I'd love to know. And yeah, I think again that'll about do it for this video. So with that, take care, be blessed, and guess what? I will see you tomorrow for day 3 of 12 Christmas story. I'm trying to say this without the tongue twisting. I don't know why that's so hard. We'll be back for the 3rd day. So with that, thank you so much. You take care and you be blessed. And yeah, be safe and stay warm. I don't know. It's like it's up and down. Like today is a little bit, well, it's not quite warm, but it's definitely warmer than it was in the last couple of days. So definitely keep warm wherever you are. All right. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.